Curry goat, it's usually a food reserved for special occasions. But what happens if I put it in Jamaica's favourite street food, a patty?
Natural ingredient flaky patties are harder and harder to find in bakeries nowadays. But I've spent a long time perfecting this recipe that combines the tenderest, melt-in-the-mouth meat with endless layers of buttery flake that will blow minds. I'll also be giving you in detail one of my favourite and most reliable pastry techniques that has gotten me compliment after compliment for the best patty you have ever had. I'm Zymaka, and I'm obsessed with making the world's best Jamaican patties. Ready? Let's go. Warning, this recipe takes approximately 6 hours to make 14 patties, only for people who want to make authentic Jamaican patties. Everything else is just an imitation. Zymaka cannot take responsibility for your silly bitty running who skips a step and gets poor results. Sticks to the instructions, batteries not included, terms and conditions apply. Before we start, we'll need to prep our butter. This is one of Jamaica's finest butters by way of a little-known Jamaican colony called France. Ooh la la. The goat deserves the fancy stuff today, but you can use any butter. Grate 500 grams of butter and then freeze it. For our curry goat, never goat curry, we need to prepare it. We take our goat and simply chop it up into what I'd call mouth-sized chunks. Better to get your local butcher to chop it up for you, unless you have a butcher's cleaver at hand. Bones are an essential in this recipe for more flavour. Here I use about 1.5 kilos of goat. Portions are kind of tricky because of bone weight, but 1 kilo will do you well. But honestly, I'd lean on the side of too much meat because leftover curry goat is a gift. Best cuts of the goat to use include shoulder, neck, leg and shank. Now before we marinate the meat, we need to clean it off, and also it removes any overpowering meaty flavour doing this. Chop 1 fresh lime. Add your meat to a bowl with some rim left over at the top. Add the juice of 1 lime and 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the bowl. Then cover the meat with water. Stir and leave to sit for 10 minutes. Be careful though of any sharp bits of bone as you use your hand. And after 10 minutes you can drain out that water. Meat's ready to go. Although don't be foolish like me and add it back to a small dish. Keep it all in a large bowl. We use 5 tablespoons of olive oil. Use 1.5 tablespoons of curry powder. 1 teaspoon of ground pimento, plus 6 pimento berries, 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika, 3 teaspoons of salt, a good crack of black pepper, 1/2 tablespoon of grated ginger, 2 Scotch bonnet, you know the drill, these are super hot so adjust to your taste, 4 chopped spring onions, 2 chopped white onions, 4 cloves of garlic, 6 to 7 sprigs of thyme. This is the bit where I realise my bowl's not big enough, so I have to go back to the big bowl. Next, rub all the seasoning into the meat until it's well coated. It's been scientifically proven that massaging your meat makes you happier. Then put it in the fridge to marinate for at least 1 hour. Ideally though, for best results, you're going to leave it for at least 12 to 24 hours. The juices just soak up so well when you leave it overnight. Next, add a few generous glugs of olive oil to a pan, let the oil heat, and then drop the meat carefully so you don't splash hot oil. Your aim here is to brown the meat as much as possible. Usually 5 minutes is enough, stirring often, and once brown, add enough water to just cover the meat. Put the lid on, bring to the boil. With the lid slightly ajar, allow it to simmer over a low heat for 1 to 2 hours. Stir every 20 minutes.
Okay, so now the curry goat's simmering, let's make the famous flaky pastry.
Add 800 grams of flour to a large bowl. Unlike me, you should ideally sieve your flour first. I'm just making lots of rookie mistakes today. Add 2 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. I'm using vanilla sugar, but for classic patty look, use standard white sugar. Then 2 tablespoons of annatto powder for the natural colouring. Next, give it a stir with a spoon and add 250 grams of your frozen grated butter. You need to be really mindful that you cannot let your butter heat up. It's the most important part to achieving flaky pastry, so once it's out the fridge, you have to be fast. Mix it all together for 20 seconds. You can even prep your flour ahead of time in the fridge to help regulate the temperature. Next, we're adding ice cold water. I completely forgot to tell you in the beginning for your prep that you should also chill your water. Easy solution, just add ice cubes to your water.
You have to be so careful here pouring, because if you add too much water, you'll lose the flake. But here's the twist. If you don't add enough water, it will fall apart and get crumbly. And that's even worse. So that means we have to go really slowly with pouring, but pretty fast and nimble with our hands so that it doesn't warm up.
There's a lot to think about when you're first starting out making patties, but this is how you become a master at patties compared to most who cheat and use crap ingredients. We do it properly here. like the old ways. I can't give you an exact amount of water as it always changes due to the flour, but I can fairly confidently say that you can probably get away with at least 220 milliliters of water. The rest you'll have to fill out for yourself. You're not kneading the dough because that will make it chewy like bread. You're just bringing it together so it stays in one mass. You don't want crumbly and falling apart, but remember that too much water will make it sticky and you'll lose your flake, so the key is to go slowly with adding your water so you can stop in time. I often separate my dough like I'm doing here so I don't overwater it. I just water the dry bits and then I'll combine them together. Remember that unless you're in a kitchen with a temp of less than approximately 10 degrees Celsius, your butter is always at risk of melting quite quickly. So as they say in Jamaica, andale andale. And don't forget to rub off those finger worms. That's extra flavor you can put back in the patty. Now bring it all into one big mass. Here I actually add a teeny tiny bit of extra water as it's a bit too crumbly. More finger worms. I can tell that my dough is actually getting close to warming up, so here I wrap it and put it in the freezer for 20 minutes. And we're back in action. Putting my dough in the freezer was only because of the heat, but you might also need to do the same step at some point in this process if your butter or dough heats up. The fridge and freezer are your friend. It might take you a bit longer, but don't lose your hard-earned flakes by being impatient and letting them melt. Here I'm making a cross with my cling film. Place your ball in the middle. What I'm about to show you is essential for having great dough. Bring the four sides over, leaving about 1 to 2 inches of slack on each side. This process will flatten out our dough into a nice easy shape that will help us later to have a superior dough that is easier to roll out. The less rolling we do, the less gluten we create, and the less gluten helps build more flake. Just press down your dough and roll it out, allowing the boundaries of the cling film to create your perfect square to rectangle shape. This will need to go in the fridge for at least 1 hour, ideally 2, and I even stick it in the freezer for a cheeky 20 to 30 minutes first if it's especially hot in my kitchen. This period is known as hydration and resting.
Lamination is always my favorite part because here we create our layers of flake, and today we're going to be constructing 4,096 layers of flake.
Oh!
You already know if your dough gets hot at any time to urgently get it back in the fridge freezer. Start by dusting out your surface and the top of your dough with flour. With a rolling pin, roll your dough out to roughly 3 times as long as it is wide. Keep lifting up the dough to make sure it hasn't stuck to the counter. Dust with flour when needed. We don't want too much flour though, because extra flour will create tough dough. I'm going to show you a trick in a moment to get rid of that extra flour on your dough. Once our dough is long enough, we can add our frozen grated butter. You simply make a row and then fold over. And repeat this 3 times like a Swiss roll. Top tip is to not put the butter too close to the edge of your dough, otherwise it can easily spill out. Another top tip is to get that butter back in the freezer between rounds to keep it super cold. Here my secret weapon is a brush to get rid of the excess flour on my dough. This works way better than fingers and I recommend it if you can get your hands on one. Twist your dough 90 degrees and roll out again and repeat the same process 6 more times. It's wise to put your dough in the fridge or freezer perhaps every 2 times you do this, but it's very much dependent on the heat of your kitchen. In summertime I have to do it every 1 to 2 times. During the rest of the year it's often so cold in London that I can do 7 times with no break. So be smart, patty people. Also, my dough is a bit narrow on these examples and you should defo roll out wider if you can, as it will help your butter distribution. I'm rushing because of the heat. Lastly, cut into 5 pieces. Look at those beautiful layers. The patty king strikes again. Get them into some cling film and back in the fridge freezer for 30 minutes. Our curry goat is looking fantastic and is ready for the next step. There's just one tiny problem.
Now, you might have noticed a few bones in our curry goat. The bones give the fantastic signature flavor to curry goat, but we can't have bones in our patty, so this is the part of the recipe where we deviate from traditional curry goat and we make it patty compatible.
With a sieve or the like, pass the liquid through so you separate solids from the liquid. I'm spooning mine out as it's super hot and I don't want splash. Leave that to cool. Next, peel and finely chop 1 medium-sized carrot, not like the giant pieces I've done. Then finely chop 1 large potato. Again, don't do as big as I have, otherwise it just takes longer to cook down. And even though more cooking time adds more flavor, this recipe is already a long one. Next, separate the meat from the bones and put into a container. Put all the bones and thyme sprigs and pimento seeds in another container and try not to eat the curry goat as you go. It's so damn tempting and the smell is unreal. Next, get any lost juices from your separated bones. It's all valuable. You could make a soup with those bones or you could just enjoy the bones. And add your meat back to the liquid, bone free. Be sure to pick out any sneaky bits of thyme and then add your potatoes and carrots. Add 1 teaspoon of salt, but add more to taste if you need, and a good crack of black pepper. Stir that in and leave to simmer with the lid on for another 30 minutes, remembering to stir every 5 or so minutes. You're left with this magic. Get that in a container and leave to cool, and once cool, put in the fridge to chill. This is pure gold.
Okay, so our curry goat has cooled down, our dough is nice and chilled. It's finally time to put the goat together.
Dust your surface again. Let's get your dough out and dust it too. Each wedge of pastry will give you 2 patties with some excess. Here I press down as well as roll, which is just to help flatten it out as it's quite cold and the butter has chilled a fair bit, which is my favorite condition to roll it. You can use any shape bowl to cut your patty, but a circle is easiest, and you can grab any size bowl to create the shape. The size of your bowl will also decide how much filling you use. My bowl is a 20cm diameter, which is pretty big, but again, use what you have. All patty sizes are beautiful. Then I use my pizza cutter to fully cut it out, and I save my offcuts for another roll. Get these in the fridge fast. Next, I add my incredible filling. I'm using 90 grams of filling per patty. Use whatever amount you prefer. There should be no liquid on them though from when you cooked. The fat will be congealed, so make sure to mix it around to soften it and spread the fat evenly. It will make an incredibly juicy patty. Fold one half over. I should have really used an egg wash to help seal it. I push the edges down with my fingers. I should also have pressed down the filling. Mamma mia, as they say in Jamaica. What's the matter with me? The pressure that he got to me. See how I really pressed down to stop any spillage in the oven. And dang it, I should have also pierced the top of my patties with a fork, so don't forget that when doing yours, otherwise they just puff up too much. 2 big punctures in the middle of the pastry with a fork will do. Seal the edges with a fork. I dip my fork in water and shake off any excess water, which helps to stop the dough sticking to the fork when I'm sealing. I wrap in a cling film again and get them ASAP into the freezer to rest for 1 hour. After 1 hour, get them in the oven on 180 degrees for 20 minutes. Cook for 25 minutes if you've left them for any length of time to freeze. Also, I'd love if you'd subscribe to my channel. I'm upgrading my patty skills every single time with new incredible techniques and tips that I'd love to keep sharing with you. 20 minutes later. Time to shine. The moment of truth is here. That was silly. So I forgot to actually film the part where I'm eating it and reviewing the patty. But trust me, they are life-changing. Drop a comment if you think they're best than beef patty. I can't decide if I'm honest, but it's very close. Also, forgive me, patty people, for I have sinned. On a second round, I added red bell pepper and spring onion to the curry goat. Red bell pepper doesn't traditionally go in curry goat, and what's worse, I did it behind your back. I also didn't capture it on camera, but damn, it was good.
You won't find this patty in a bakery or shop, so if you don't make it yourself, you will rob yourself of the greatest of all time. Dare I even say this is better than beef? This is the goat. Boosh.